As the New York Islanders prepare for preseason game 2, we have the latest updates and some important feedback on Matthew Schaefer from Mathew Barzal. We've got all that and more next on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to the Tuesday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. I'm Gil Martin. I've been covering the New York Islanders for almost 2 decades, and I wrote the book Ice Wars on the history of the Islanders' rivalry with the Rangers from 1972 to the modern era. So glad you could join us today to talk a little Islanders hockey. And, we've got a busy show ahead. We're going to have the latest Islanders injury updates and roster moves as training camp continues. We'll also talk a little bit about some of the feedback that Matthew Schaefer got from coaches and teammates in his preseason debut on Sunday night, and the Islanders will take on the New Jersey Devils in preseason game 2 tonight, and we'll talk a little bit about that as well. We will start with the injury update, and the big scare in preseason game 1 was Kashan Aitcheson, who took a knee-to-knee hit, or let's just back up. It looked very much like a knee-to-knee hit against the Philadelphia Flyers. It happened in the third period. Noah Juulsen delivering the blow. And again, the game was streamed. It wasn't on television. We didn't have full access to replays. Eventually, though, the one angle that was available, started to make its way across social media. I did tweet it out there, so you certainly can, watch it if you follow me on my Twitter feed. But it was really a big scare because, Aitcheson, not that he was going to make the team this year. That was considered highly unlikely, but first-round pick. And, it really was one of those situations where you hold your breath because you don't want to see a great prospect like that miss time due to injury, especially a serious injury. And I don't think we're going to see anything from the Department of Player Safety, even though I think it was certainly something they could very well review. And, it was Tony DeAngelo who stuck up for Aitcheson, and here's what he had to say about the hit. Juulsen made a good read, makes a fine hit, no big deal. We just stick up for each other. Tough kid, played a really good game. So, it doesn't seem like even Tony DeAngelo thinks that this was an intentional or dirty hit. And I don't think it was an intentionally dirty hit, but it really did look like knee on knee. But the important part is the injury aspect of it. After the game, Patrick Waugh basically saying he's fine. He's going to be day-to-day. It's a lower body injury. He'll be fine. So the good news is this is not going to be serious. It is not going to hold Kashan Aitcheson out of the lineup for an extended period of time. He may miss a couple of days worth of practice. I don't think he was likely to play in tonight's preseason game against the Devils anyway, because usually in the first 3 or 4 preseason games, you always have that mix of players who are experienced and looking to get back into action and, prospects who are either destined for juniors again the ECHL or Bridgeport in this case for the Islanders. And you sort of mix those guys in. And so guys like Aitcheson would most likely play every other preseason game. Now, the drawback is, and I think it's a small drawback, under the circumstances, you want him to get as much time on the ice in training camp and in preseason games as possible. You know, he's almost certainly going back to juniors. That is what everyone expects. And he's probably a couple of years away. He probably has one more year in juniors, probably 1 year in Bridgeport after that. And then, you know, he can head to competing realistically for an NHL roster spot. And again, for a mid-round, first-round pick, middle of the round, first-round pick, that's not unusual. But you wanted him to get as much exposure playing against NHL caliber players, working with the coaches, working with his future teammates, the increased speed of the game, the increased physicality and size of the players. You wanted him to get as much exposure to that as possible. And obviously, you know, that is going to be reduced by what happened on the ice Sunday against the Philadelphia Flyers. So the good news is it's not serious, and it looks very much like he will be fine and be able to play this season without issue. The bad news is he will be day-to-day and miss some time in camp. Now, the Islanders also made some moves on Monday, basically sending 3 players out of camp. Forward Tomasz Politin headed back to his Western Hockey League junior team. So he is headed out. Luca Romano headed back to Kitchener of the OHL. He had some really nice moments in the game against Philadelphia. The shootout moment also. I like his potential, his passing, his skating. Again, you're talking about, a third-round draft pick. He's 2, 3, maybe even 4 years away from the NHL, but he made a nice first impression. He heads back to Kitchener. And then goalie Burke Hood headed back to Vancouver of the WHL. And again, these are all moves that were expected. The question was when. I don't think anybody had any of these 3 players making the big club. Politin looked good in training camp. Played on Sunday, had a shot on goal, 2 hits, 3 blocks, and a little less than 12 minutes of ice time. Romano, really liked what we saw from him. And Burke Hood, yeah, he got off to a slow start in training camp. Clearly needed to adjust to the speed of the NHL game and the shots and all of that. Again, perfectly normal. He's a 6th-round pick. Not expected. You know, if you get any NHL time from a 6th-round pick down the road, that is a bonus. More often than not, a 6th-round pick, you know, either doesn't play in the NHL or barely plays in the NHL. There are notable exceptions, obviously. But as training camp went on, Hood clearly was adjusting and learning what it takes to face NHL caliber shooters and make important saves. So those 3 players headed back to juniors. Cannot say it is a surprise in any way, shape, or form. And on we go for as far as the training camp is concerned for the New York Islanders. The best part of all this news, though, Kashan Aitcheson, nothing serious, day-to-day after that hit, and very happy with that news for sure. We're going to talk a little bit more about Matthew Schaefer and what his coaches and teammates thought about his performance. We'll have that. Plus, for our Islanders' birthday of the day, a Hull, Quebec native who was originally a first-round pick of the Blue Jackets and spent 1 year with the Islanders in 2019, 2020. Let's see if you can guess who it is. We'll discuss his impact on the team, all that and more next on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by your friends at FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your first $5 bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. That's $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. Do you prefer player props, maybe building a same-game parlay to win even more money, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds? It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your favorite team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app today by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet, and if it wins, you get $300 in bonus bets. FanDuel.com, check it out today. So a lot of impressions of Matthew Schaefer's debut. And, you know, we talked everydayers. You'll remember we talked a little bit about it on the show yesterday, but I think there's more there. And the one thing that I really liked, what I saw from Matthew Schaefer, was that you could see the skill set that made him the first overall pick in the draft. The skating, the acceleration. You know, you could talk about the passing and the vision and some of the plays he made, and they were good. But you know what play impressed me the most? He made a rush into the offensive zone, and the puck ended up going back the other way. And Schaefer skated full speed, all out to get back defensively, and ended up breaking up a potential breakaway with a really good back check. That hustle, that effort, and the fact that he was hustling not to make an offensive move, but to get back on defense, that knowledge that he had to be responsible defensively, that was critical in my mind to see Matthew Schaefer accomplish that. And, you know, Mathew Barzal, veteran forward who's been through the wars in this league, had a lot to say about what he saw from Matthew Schaefer. And here's what Barzy said. He looks great. Obviously a great skater. It's crazy to think he's only 18 years old. Yeah, I don't know what the plan is, but he's going to be one of, if not the best defenseman in the league, I think, at some point. Just based off his instincts right now, he's got it. And again, it all sets up the important decision that the Islanders are going to have to make. And, you know, the good news is that Schaefer looks good. Patrick Waugh liked a lot of what he saw. Obviously, there's still some work to be done, though. The defensive positioning, he finished the game -1. He was on the ice for some goals against. And that's what's going to take the longest, I think, the physicality and the defensive positioning aspects of the game. So if you're Patrick Waugh and you're Matthew Darche, Are you going to keep Matthew Schaefer on this roster all year, or are you sending him back to juniors? And remember that he can play up to 9 games with the Islanders, and they could still send him back to juniors and not burn a full year of his entry-level contract, which is a 3-year deal. It'll just move up, and next year would be the first year of that entry-level contract. I fully expect Schaefer, based on what we've seen from him so far, and yeah, it's one preseason game, rookie camp, training camp. It's a very limited sample size. But based on the skating and the skill and the vision, and yes, the lack of bulk and the lack of experience on the negative side, he's going to get the 9-game tryout. He is going to make this team out of training camp. And it really is going to come down to, I think, how much of a liability is Matthew Schaefer going to be initially in those first 9 games defensively. And again, I think we saw on Sunday, we clearly did see Scott Mayfield standing up for Matthew Schaefer, getting involved physically if anyone went and challenged Schaefer with some physicality. And that is going to be something that will be needed initially for Matthew Schaefer. The kid has the right attitude. He has the right work ethic. He learns. He's coachable. But it comes down to 2 questions, one of which I think we'll know after 9 games, and one of which we won't know. What we'll know is how much of a problem his defense and his lack of bulk and physicality is going to bring. And when I say lack of physicality, I am not saying the kid is unwilling to check or be physical or dig for the pucks in the corners or battle in front of his own net to clear away a forward who's trying to screen his goalie. No, he is willing. I think he knows what he needs to do. But the question is, at age 18, and we're still talking like 3 weeks past his 18th birthday, not even as of today, but at age 18, is he physically able to handle NHL hockey over 82 games? Or even if he plays 65 games and they spot him, if he doesn't play in back-to-backs, second game of back-to-backs, or first game of back-to-backs. All of those things are possibilities, but we will have an idea after the preseason and after that 9-game tryout of, how much of a liability, if any, he's going to be initially, with the idea that realistically he's going to continue to get better as he gets experience, as he gets more comfortable with the speed and size of the players and of the pace of the game. That we will know. But the other issue in my mind that we won't know after 9 games, barring something really unexpected happening, is what is the realistic expectations for this team this year. And, if the Islanders think that, if he plays 9 games and the Islanders are 7-0-2 in those 9 games, keep him. If they're 0-7-2, maybe it's a factor that says, hey, we could send him back to juniors. We'll have an extra year of his contract. We're not necessarily going to do very much this year. And you go from there. But these are the difficult decisions that have to be made by Matthew Darche and Patrick Waugh. And hopefully they figure it out. I think he's going to stay beyond the 9 games as of now. And the other thing I would definitely do, the Islanders play 6 total preseason games. I would have Matthew Schaefer on the ice for 4 or 5 of those games. Maybe give him a break if there's 2 games close together time-wise. But overall, I want to see him on the ice as much as possible. What is his recovery time after a game? How does he feel the day after? I want to see how he handles the grind of an NHL season. And so I would give him as much ice time and as many games as possible during the preseason to try to do just that. And it will be interesting to see how it all plays out under the circumstances. But hopefully, this becomes a situation where they do what's best for Matthew Schaefer and the Islanders organization over the long term. All right, we've got more to get to on today's show. We'll talk a little bit about the Devils and preseason game 2, which will be tonight. So we are definitely looking forward to that. Plus, we'll have our Islanders birthday of the day and his impact on the team. All that and more next on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you could end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. And if you share accounts with a significant other, Monarch can help both of you stay on the same page. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNHL. So the Islanders will be in New Jersey to take on the Devils tonight. Because of the holiday, I will not be live tweeting that game, unfortunately, although I don't miss too many, really. Maybe 2 or 3 the whole year. But this preseason game, I will not be able to watch live. And look, the thing about a preseason game, I'm not breaking down matchups. I am not going to sit there and say, oh, yeah, the Islanders have to stop, Jack Hughes, or they're not going to win the game. No. The important thing here is not winning and losing games. It's getting guys out there on the ice, seeing which combinations, whether it's lines or defense pair, whether, how well guys work together, seeing some of the prospects. Again, I mentioned Matthew Schaefer. Cal Ritchie didn't play, for example, in the preseason opener against Philadelphia. I am anxious to see how Cal Ritchie looks in this game, assuming that he plays, and I think he will. What we did see in the preseason opener was a lot of the available draft picks. I mean, Victor Ekland's still over in Europe, so he's definitely not, available to play. But you want to see, what does Cal Ritchie look like? How is Isaiah George going to play, for example? assuming that he gets out on the ice. I want to see Emil Heineman out there for the first time. Simon Holmstrom didn't play. Anthony Duclair didn't play. We saw how Mathew Barzal, how he responded in his return, which was encouraging. But, Anthony Duclair, still not 100%. According to him, he's close. I want to see what he does. I want to see Jonathan Drouin again out there, if possible, if he plays. Maxim Siplikov, want to see more from him. Just like Schaefer, I want to see Shabanov out there for as many of these preseason games as possible. Mark Gatcomb, Kyle McLean, they didn't play in the first preseason game. Adam Boqvist, you want to see how these guys do, and hopefully we do see Ilya Sorokin out there, and Marcus Hogberg out there. So it's more of a feeling out process at this point. Get guys to get their feet wet in game action, see some of the combinations, see some of the prospects, some of the kids. How do they handle the speed of a preseason NHL game as compared to college, AHL, juniors, whatever it is that they've been dealing with before. And, that's what I'm watching in a preseason game. So I was encouraged despite the shootout loss against Philadelphia. Hopefully here against the Devils, again, we get some encouraging play from some of the team's prospects and picks and guys returning from injury, because that's what we need to look for in these games. Time now for our Islanders birthday of the day. And Monday was the 38th birthday of former Islanders forward Derek Brassard, the native of Hull, Quebec, a first-round pick, 6th overall by the Columbus Blue Jackets back in 2006. Made his NHL debut in 07-08 with the Blue Jackets, later played for the Rangers, the Senators, the Penguins, the Panthers, and the Avalanche before joining the Islanders for the 2019-2020 season. He played in 66 games for the Isles, had 10 goals, 32 points, and 16 penalty minutes, added 2 goals and 8 points in 18 playoff games in that bubble year. And Brassard got off to a really hot start with the Islanders, kind of tailed off as the year went on. He later played for the Coyotes, the Flyers, the Oilers, and then a second tour of duty with the Senators. Made it to 1,000 games, 1,013 career games, 215 goals, 545 points, penalty minutes, and add 25 goals and 68 points in 118 playoff games. Brassard was a solid middle six forward, and he certainly had his moments with the Islanders, including November 13th, 2019, Islanders hosting the Maple Leafs at the Nassau Coliseum. Frederik Andersen, the goalie for Toronto, Semyon Varlamov, the goalie for the Islanders. And in the first period, late, with the Islanders up 1-0, Isles on the power play, and Brassard and Ryan Polak assist on a power play goal by Anthony Beauvillier. That made it 2-0. But in the second period, the Maple Leafs tie it 2-2 on goals by Kasperi Kapanen and William Nylander. But late in the period, Brassard and Brock Nelson set up Beauvillier for another goal. That gives the Isles back a 3-2 lead. And then Derek Brassard, our Islanders' birthday of the day, scores midway through the third period. Mathew Barzal and Ryan Polak with the assists. Islanders go on to win it by a score of 5-4 for Derek Brassard, a goal and 2 assists. He had 5 shots on goal, which tied him for the team lead with Anthony Beauvillier, and he was on the ice for 14 minutes and 37 seconds, 23 saves for Varley. Islanders beat the Maple Leafs in this one 5-4. 3-point night for Derek Brassard. He is our Islanders' birthday of the day. Thank you for making Locked On Islanders your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NHL podcast. There is no offseason. We're bringing you the daily league-wide stories that matter most with the local coverage you love from Locked On. Find Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Everydayers, we are back tomorrow. Because of the holiday, I will not be discussing the Tuesday night game against the Devils, but we've got a lot of important big picture issues to get to and a mailbag question as well. So make sure you join us for that as we take a deep dive into what to expect from the Islanders this season and the keys to success this year. If you want to follow the show on X, you could follow it at Locked On Isles. You can follow me, Gil Martin, on X at Ice Wars, NYR vs NYI. We'll keep you up to date on all things Islanders all year long, and it's always great to talk a little Islanders hockey with you anytime. Until then, have a great day, everybody. Stay safe, and of course, let's go Islanders.